Now, interestingly, we're going to move toward another side of the alternative side of things, John, a very specific alternative, and that's uranium as a metal, or metal, I guess, if you want to call it that element. We're having a moment right now, right? Today alone, the Global X Uranium ETF is hitting its highest level since 2014. And this, of course, comes on the back of all of the artificial intelligence hype, as it could be a major power source, nuclear power, with uranium when it comes to data centers and the push towards artificial intelligence. John, the uranium trade, it's one that has gone parabolic just over the course of the last few months. Is this something that is catching your attention?
Yeah, we've been talking about uranium and nuclear energy nonstop for 4 years at Sprott, and we've been incredibly bullish on the segment for a number of very, I think, powerful secular long-term drivers that is moving the world back to nuclear power after largely ignoring it for the previous 30 odd years in most Western countries. And those catalysts, I think, have been very profound. First of all, you had a severe energy crisis in Europe and Asia in 2022 when Russia natural gas supplies got cut off. That was a real wake-up call for a lot of European countries that they did not have energy security. And if you don't have energy security, that will undermine your competitiveness. Businesses will start to shut down and move away to lower cost centers. So it was really about energy security. Obviously, there's been a push around more cleaner technologies. Nuclear energy is zero greenhouse gas emitting, so it ticks the box in terms of low carbon footprint. And it is incredibly energy dense, which means you can store vast amounts of energy in very small amount of space, in sharp contrast to things like oil, natural gas, and coal. So it is really the backbone of the electrical grid. It provides 365, 24/7 baseload power, which is really what you need versus highly variable intermittent energy that renewable sources of energy are providing today. And you're starting to see more and more issues around grid failures. We had one in Spain a couple of weeks ago, which people believe was in part because of excessive solar and wind providing electricity at the grid at one point in time. So there's been a real shift. And with respect to the United States, 2 weeks ago, we had 4 executive orders come from the Trump administration that in our minds is very, very bullish and very, very well thought through in terms of taking a very holistic approach to the entire supply chain around nuclear energy, everything from mining, processing, permitting of new technologies and plants, and really kind of trying to kickstart a lot of these new technologies that the world is clamoring for, particularly the hyperscalers.
John, when I think of uranium, I think of nuclear energy. I grew up in a time when Americans and even more broadly, folks around the world were a little bit more frightened about the aspect of having nuclear power plants. I remember the NIMBY notion, right? Not in my backyard for many of these nuclear power plants. I wonder from an asset manager's standpoint, from a guy who runs money tied to putting portfolios together with some of these types of products and companies, do you feel as though there is actually a fundamental change afoot for us in America, in Canada, in North America more broadly, and then globally, that nuclear power is here to stay and that this is a secular trend for investing in things like not just uranium, but the power companies that go along with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was talking about nuclear energy 4 years ago, the most common questions I would get were, is it a safe technology? What about the spent fuel? And now I think there is so much more understanding and education about this category. And I think it really validates the technology when you have governments around the world, throughout Asia, Europe, and obviously in North America, flipping back to this technology. If you look at a lot of public opinion surveys, they have moved decisively back in favor. And I think it's very clear. It's a reliable a form of energy. It has zero greenhouse gases. It has a very good long-term track record. And it provides a lot of electricity in large scale. And that's right now what the grid is calling for. And it's something that the grid has not had to deal with for the last 20 years. Load growth in the United States has been very nominal. Now you have reshoring of industry. You have AI data centers, which are very electricity intensive, that want to scale up and win this race. And the hyperscalers have figured out that yes, while renewable energy will be part of that energy solution as well as natural gas, that nuclear in both large scale and small modular reactors, this is the next generation of reactors, are really going to provide a lot of the low growth that the market is looking for in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, just some political context around this, because John touched on a lot of the major things, which is that energy demand in the United States has been flat for decades. And what's really causing that to grow and the need for us to find more power sources are the hyperscalers. So we look at this as AI phase 2, right? We had the semiconductors last year really benefiting, and you need chips first. But now people are like, well, we also need power. And you need reliable power. These data centers can't go down. They can't go down for like a fraction of a second, right? They need to be running all the time. The question was, what are the risks to this trade coming into the year? And no one wanted to see a repeat of alternative energy stocks. And so the negative on it was, it's going to take 5 years to build a nuclear power plant. What's going to happen in the meantime? Investors are not patient, as we know, Dominic, right? And so I said, listen, I think the counter is the Trump administration is going to be so positive, this source of energy, that you're going to get a drip of positive news and small steps, not just in the US, but elsewhere, that will support these stocks. And you saw that literally today. I think Aklo said that the Air Force is going to use power. And of course, Trump controls federal land, right? So that's not a NIMBY kind of potential risk. It is elsewhere, but not on federal lands. And they're going to leverage that hard to start to show the safety of these newer, smaller technologies.
And John, one final point on this. If we talk about the Trump administration and its views towards trying to promote the energy independence of America, this is also, if you want to look at it from a medium to longer term side of things, this is a type of philosophy or investing construct that needs to survive not just a Trump administration, but future administrations as well, regardless of what their political tilt is going to be. Is this a trade, so to speak, that has enough runway where politics can be out of the issue with regard to why you invest in these types of companies?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll start off by saying that energy policy in the US under the previous administration and the current one has really been built and underpinned on energy reality. And that is this growing load growth that many industries are calling for. And so we think that the trend is real. We think this is very similar to what happened in the 1970s and 80s when we experienced an oil crisis. It was a real wake-up call for governments around the world that they needed to invest in this technology. That's when most of the plants were built. What you're seeing right now is life extensions of existing plants. You're seeing plants that were closed restarting. And that's a very powerful signal, because that is the path of least resistance to securing a lot of power with very low greenhouse gas emissions. So we think this trend is long-term and secular and durable. And with the exception of Germany, I think every country around the world has flipped back to nuclear power, which is a very powerful signal.
Yeah, I would underline something that John mentioned, which is it's really bipartisan. What really set the alarms off for us in a positive way was when Democratic governors in California, Michigan, and Delaware kind of were in favor of the extension of some of these plants. And so the Republicans have been for it. So that's really great to see parties working together in the United States. So I think for us, it's really one of the tactical trades, Dominic, that we like the most. I mean, if you look around the world, I think AI is just this multi-year trend that you need to lean into. The other one is completely different, but it's the rise of India. But we see those trades, and we have them on in our portfolios.